It's just really a privilege to be able to introduce Jennifer to you. I met her when she was a 4th grader, and she began attending our school here at CrossRoads. And her 4th grade teacher is sitting right here, Kathy Mall, and her, was it 7th and 8th grade, Rhonda?
5th grade.
5th grade, Rhonda Shanaker was her teacher in 5th grade. And I was thinking coming this morning that we don't often, as teachers who work with children, get to see the results as the kids grow up. But the fact that I've been here for so long, I am privileged to see some of them and what God has done in their lives. And Jennifer is one of those beautiful stories. Her mother is here. She didn't bring me icing again, but that's okay. Anyway, Jennifer has a beautiful story. She's a beautiful young woman, and I'm so proud to introduce to you Miss Arizona 2013, Jennifer Smestad.
Okay, first comment, shoes. I'm not really this tall. I'm kind of lying, don't tell God. Lying about my height this morning. Actually, I'll just hold this. All right, well, so my story, we all know that everyone has a story in life and everyone goes through challenges. I wish it was all perfect, but it doesn't work out that way, and I think that's what makes us grow closer to God and be able to help others throughout life. But my story is when I was 10 years old, I was diagnosed with something called Tourette syndrome. And that's a neurological disorder that kind of makes your body make sudden movements and noises, which are called tics. And when I was diagnosed, it wasn't just me being diagnosed, it was my whole family. It's truly a family struggle and a family and friends struggle, and it's something that's so hard to go through. So God has definitely played a huge role in helping me through it, helping me overcome it, and giving me the most perfect parents and doctors. Oh, Mom's like, gosh, no. She's like, Dad's not here. Dad's not perfect. I know what you're thinking. I just spoke at another event a couple weeks ago, and it was a women's luncheon, and my dad wasn't there, so she's like, oh, I like these events without Dad. Okay, back to my story. So we have a family doctor who is so incredible, and she's so close to our family, and she's been trying to find out for a while kind of what was causing me to be weird, frankly. People thought I was weird, or my family. They had no idea what was going on when I would make weird faces, and they would kindly make fun of it before we knew anything, so it wasn't a big deal. And then so it kept going on, and it kept getting worse as the time went by. So my doctor spent so much time, and my mom spent so much time researching everything and trying to figure out what was causing me to act this way. And so my doctor found out it was Tourette syndrome, so she diagnosed me with that. And then for years, a couple years, months and years of struggling through this, doctor after doctor telling us, you can never get rid of this, there's no cure to this, you're just gonna have to struggle with this the rest of your life. I was like, no, I'm not. This is not happening. I don't like it. I'm gonna find a way, and if I cannot get rid of it, then I'll overcome it and I'll deal with it and I'll learn to live with it. So I wasn't like that the entire time. There were a lot of times when it was hard to deal with, when I would actually pray that God would take my life away because I didn't want to deal with this anymore. I was so embarrassed to go to school, to be in public. I didn't want anybody to know about it. I only wanted my parents. I was even embarrassed to talk to my parents about it. That's how hard it got. But then just one day, I don't know what it was, I just decided that I wanted to take the high road and kind of learn to live with it. And it took me many years to be able to share this story, and I didn't even share it until actually about 2 years ago now. But so I'll tell a little bit more about kind of what had happened while struggling with it. So first, I was 4th grade when I was diagnosed, and I think it was a God thing because about a couple months throughout 4th grade, I switched from public school to private school, private Christian school. And God knew I would not be able to handle it in my public school. And I think he put me in this safe environment to grow closer to God and to be able to have a smaller class and not be as scared going to class and going to school because I didn't have as many people to be around and to be embarrassed by. So I had great friends, and they still remain my friends to this day, but I still didn't tell them about what I was going through because I was still embarrassed about it. So I know Tourette's is hard to deal with because a lot of the times people don't believe that you have it because you can control it to a certain degree. So if you go out in public or you're in class or you're in school, you can hold back your symptoms as much as you can, and some things will slide out here and there, but then when you get home, it all comes out and it all explodes 10 times worse. It really does, and that's where it becomes a family struggle because this happened in high school. I don't know for sure if it happened when I went to private school here, but my parents would tell, the principal and my professors and my teachers and everything, and they wouldn't really get it. They wouldn't understand because I was a good student and I wasn't as severe in my symptoms at school. And so it was really hard for me doing homework at home compared to homework at school. And so it was a really big struggle. Sorry, Mom. It was a really big struggle for them because they worked so hard to get me the help at school, and really I was trying to hide it from everybody so I was kind of like, sorry Mom, I'm perfect in school and I'll let you deal with me at home. It's not fun. It's not fun for any of us. So I think some of the struggles, I told you that I would pray that I didn't live anymore, and my mom would always tell me, God probably gave this to you for a reason. There's a reason that you have this. You're going to inspire people someday. I did not care what she had to say in the moment. I was like, no, Mom, I want to get rid of this. This is not fun. I don't like this. I'm 10, 12 years old. Why do I have to go through this? Why does someone so young who doesn't really understand it, why do you have to go through something like this? Well, 5, 10, 15 years later, now I know. Wait, I'm not 25. How old am I? I don't know, 12 years later? I'm 22. 12 years later, I realized that God really does give you struggles for a reason, and it's to inspire people. And in school, it was really hard. I think one of the main reasons I struggled was because social anxiety and OCD tag along with Tourette syndrome. And anxiety in general, not just social anxiety. So I would have major anxiety going on airplanes, sometimes getting in the car, putting on my seatbelt because it made me feel claustrophobic. I loved going on roller coasters, but if the seatbelt was really tight, I would freak out and would rather jump off the roller coaster midair and not have a seatbelt. Don't recommend doing that. But sometimes I felt like I wanted to. And then the OCD, I think, was probably the worst part of it, because if you had a slight tick of maybe sometimes I would hit myself, hit my cheek, the OCD would make you do it 10 times or 20 times or whatever amount of times it was. And sometimes it would be the light switch. I'd have to turn it on and off 14 times. And if it didn't feel just right, I'd keep doing it until it felt just right. So that OCD really kind of let the Tourette syndrome sink in. Washing my hands, always. I still have OCD to this day, but I think it actually helps me out. It's not, I'm super organized and I like being organized. I don't know, it just feels good now. It's not a problem really anymore. But I used to wash my hands. Seriously, if I would touch this, run to the bathroom, wash my hands. Every 5 minutes, and my hands would be bleeding because they were so dry. They'd be so clean yet so dry and so painful. and then I would do, eye twitches, and it would be really frustrating to watch TV. I couldn't watch TV because I'd be making noises, and my family couldn't watch TV. I'd be blinking and I'd have to rewind because I couldn't see what I was watching because I blinked so much. And then writing essays and reading. My dad would actually have to read to me because I couldn't do it. I would have so much OCD to where I'd read every single word 5 times, and I'd go back and read that sentence over and over and over again. So my dad just eventually had to read to me. This is probably why I don't really like reading now. But it helped, it worked, it got me through school. And then writing essays was really hard. Typing was easier for me, but when I would write, I would have a twitch or a tick, and then I'd have to go back and erase. Or if my A didn't look perfect, have to go back and erase it 10 times and rewrite it. So really what should have taken me an hour to write an essay took me 5 days. I don't know how I dealt with it. And somehow I remained a 4.0. I don't know. That's the thing is I loved school. I loved to socialize. I loved to challenge myself. And that's why it was such a struggle because I loved it, but it was so hard for me to complete my work. And I didn't understand why because honestly, going to school and meeting new people was my favorite thing to do, minus being embarrassed about my symptoms. So that's another thing is that I always loved to socialize, but then this got in the way of my social life because I wanted to be with friends and make new friends and always loved having those close friendships, but I would only want to be with them for a small amount of time because I knew after an hour maybe it would start to get hard to hold my symptoms in, so I just wanted to go home and let it all out. And that carried on about 4th grade until about my sophomore year in high school, and that's when it started to get a little better, but I'm going to talk a little bit about my high school years. So going from 8th grade, graduating here at CrossRoads Community School, and going into a public school. Private to public school is hard enough as is. Private to public school with Tourette syndrome is a nightmare. So I went in, I still loved school, still loved homework, still loved to meet new friends, had great friends, thankfully, from my elementary school that went to my high school. So I felt comfortable enough to be able to go there and push myself through it. I wanted this challenge. I wanted to kind of start overcoming my symptoms and putting myself out there. But same thing, I had such bad social anxiety, I could not stand up and give a 2-minute presentation in front of my class. I would have to do it either separately in front of just my teachers, or my friends and I kind of did this thing where I would do their homework and they would speak for me. So it worked. They loved it, and my teachers were okay with it, honestly. They're like, if they're doing the extra speaking work, you can do the extra bullet point work. I'm like, okay, works for me. So I would do the behind the scenes stuff and they would get up and speak for me. But it was still embarrassing because people would question why I was the only one that didn't get up and speak. And I hated dealing with that, so I would rather deal with that than not speak in front of the class at that time. So I just kind of dealt with it for a little bit, went to school, did my thing, went home, did my thing that my parents didn't like. And then I decided, I think it was 8th grade going into freshman year, I started to, I wanted to overcome it, so I decided to try out for cheer, which I did gymnastics growing up, and then I stopped for a little while. And I think cheer really helped me. I loved it. It was kind of like a counseling session for me. You know, it's something that I love to go to, that I really enjoyed. And then being athletic and kind of being occupied with other things other than school and thinking about Tourette syndrome, it kind of helps your symptoms and helps you get through the day, and it keeps you busy. So that's something that really helped me because I started getting out in front of people, but it was with a whole team. So there were 20 girls cheering at a football game, and it wasn't just myself. So it was very, very nerve-wracking at first, but I think having those other girls with me really helped it, because I kind of blended in, but at the same time, I was 20 girls out of the whole school that were on cheer, so I was at the top in that section of the school. So I think that really helped a lot, and then I continued it sophomore, junior, senior year, and eventually junior and senior year I was on varsity doing competitions, and eventually I did a 5-man group, so that was stunting, and there was just 5 of us, and I would compete, so there was a smaller group, and then I was a flyer, so there was only 4 flyers up at one time, so I was one of the 4. So it kind of like gradually grew. And then my junior year, all of my friends were in student council, all of my friends that were in cheer, and I was the only one that wasn't. So my senior year, I was like, this is my last year of high school, I really, really want to be in student council. What do you have to do to be in student council? You have to speak in front of your entire class. Chandler High had about 950 in my class. So I was like, do I face my fear and speak in front of 950 people who I see every single day? Or do I live with a whole year of not being in student council and probably regretting that my whole life? So I think cheer definitely helped me overcome this, and I decided, my friends are doing it, I can do it too. I put together about a 5-minute speech for my class for student council, and I even sang a cappella, and no one knew I sang. Nobody. So that was the very first time I ever sang. I did recitals when I was little, but after going through this, that was the very first time I sang in public, and it was in front of my peers, and boy, was it nerve-wracking, but it was such a freeing experience to be able to speak and sing in front of my class. And then I was voted in, and I was spirit commissioner my senior year of high school at student council. So that was a very accomplishing feeling. And I think, so socially, cheer and student councils and my friends and my family are really what helped me through that. But I think it was 8th grade, God spoke to our doctor. And I was very, very fortunate for this. Our doctor came to my front door and said, I found this doctor, and I think you need to go to her. And her name is Dr. Jing Liu. She's a natural Chinese acupuncture doctor, trained straight from China. She knows what she's doing, because I mean, she had years of training from doctors in China, and she knew exactly what she's doing. And that was definitely a God thing, because we've never heard of acupuncture before. My biggest fear is needles. And I was like, no. But it was so bad to the point that my family and I were willing to try anything. And we didn't think that acupuncture would help me at all. We're like, okay, so small needles are being poked in you, and that's gonna help how? But then I decided to go. I was like, I'm just gonna do it. I was scared to death. My anxiety was at a peak. But the doctor and God kind of calmed me down. And my dad has this thing that every time I would really stress or really struggle, he would just hold me, and it would just make me feel so much better. So it was like my dad's magic touch, God speaking to me, and this doctor coming into my life. And she would call me her princess, so immediately we just had this great connection, my doctor and I. And so I think I wouldn't have done it if I didn't feel comfortable with her. I would not let a stranger poke a needle in my body, and it's really not that bad. It's like tiny little things. It's like, I mean, you can't even feel it. So eventually I came to find out that you can't even feel it, and it's not a big deal. But in the first place, I was freaking out. But I ended up doing it, and I pushed through it, and it wasn't so bad the first time, and I only got maybe 3 needles in me the first time. And then eventually I went twice a week for about 2 months, and my parents noticed a difference in me, and I kind of did this thing where I pretended I didn't even have Tourette's. I pretended there was nothing wrong in the world, and I still somewhat to this day deal with issues like that. So if heartbreak, for example, pretend it doesn't happen. It's probably not the healthiest way of dealing with things, but that's just how I've always been. So my parents would be like, are you noticing a difference? I'm like, no, I don't know what you're talking about. Difference of what? Like, I'm fine, I'm perfect. There's nothing wrong with me. As I'm hitting myself. And so my parents started noticing a difference when I was at volleyball practice and softball practice. They started noticing that I was playing better because I was seeing the ball better. I was not having tics as much. I wasn't having anxiety as much going to school. And then, so they noticed it got better, so I kept going to acupuncture, and then I started going like once a week, and then I started going once a month, and then it just got less and less and less. And I think it was between about 8th grade and sophomore year that I was doing the acupuncture. And after a while, I came to my senses, and I was like, Mom, what's wrong with me? I think I'm like normal. I was like, I'm not really like, I don't have as bad anxiety anymore. I don't tick as much anymore. And it was just like this freeing feeling. And I was still embarrassed about it. Even though I wasn't having as many symptoms, I still struggled with it because I still didn't want people to know that I had struggled with Tourette syndrome or had it or still have it or whatever it was. It's like that word, when you hear Tourette syndrome, you just like cringe, and it was the scariest word. That was probably my biggest fear, even over needles. Not anymore, because I still am afraid of needles. But it was the biggest fear, and especially high school, you hear so much negativity about Tourette syndrome. People are like, oh, you have Tourette's? Isn't that where you shout out profanity words all the time? And you're like, no, that's actually one of the most rare symptoms. I think 12% of people with Tourette syndrome actually do that. I've never met someone who did that. I've never done that. So that was the biggest fear, is I think telling people about it, because they would automatically think that I was possessed. Or honestly, I've had a couple people come up to me and be like, oh, are you possessed? I'm like, no, I'm not. Actually, God gave this to me for a good reason. And then, so that, I think my biggest fear was people just assuming automatically what it was, and then I didn't want to have to take the time to be able to explain to them what it actually was. So that was something that was super, super hard to go through. I was ashamed of what I had. I was always embarrassed. I mean, I would even lock myself in my room at home because I didn't want my parents to see what I was going through. And I didn't want them to have to deal with it either, because they have done so much. They have spent so much money that I probably could have spent on so much more clothes, on medical bills. Dang it, why did I, whatever. Hey, but you should owe me clothes. We can work out a deal here. Oh, I'm just kidding, they did enough when I became Miss Arizona. But, and then so, it was definitely a God thing, because then, probably, I would say my freshman year of college, I started to realize, I still, even when I was a senior, even when I felt great and I was speaking in public, speaking in my classrooms, cheering, starting to sing again, even though I felt great, I still never acknowledged Tourette syndrome or what I've gone through. I just ignored it. I ignored that I had ever gone through anything. And then about probably freshman or sophomore year of college, I started to realize that I really did overcome a lot. And my parents would tell me this all the time, and I didn't really care, I didn't really believe them. But then I think my friend was Miss Arizona 2011, and I watched her, I went to Miss America to watch her compete, and then I watched her throughout her year do so many amazing things. She did so much community service. She was such a great and genuine person, and she really did a lot and took her title to the extreme. And I decided that I wanted to compete, so on our way back driving from Vegas, I told my parents, I think I want to compete. And my mom and dad are like, oh great, oh great, here, Jen wants to compete in a pageant. And so usually when I do something that I want to do, I set my mind to it and I do it. And sometimes I drive my parents crazy, but I do it. And so my dad kind of thought like, well, either she's going to take it and go with it, or she's going to be like, oh, I'm going to try it. I'll compete for a local pageant and then I'll be done afterwards. Well, I honestly didn't even know where it was going to take me. So in order to compete at Miss Arizona, you have to win a local title. So there's like Miss Phoenix, Miss Gilbert, Miss Chandler. I competed for Miss Cave Creek was my first one. And this was about 2 months after watching my friend compete at Miss America. And I went to this pageant having no idea what I was doing. But you have to have a platform to compete, and a platform is an issue that you deeply care about. So mine was automatically Tourette syndrome. And I wasn't quite ready to talk about this even though I had overcome my fears, and at this time, I have overcome my fears and I had overcome Tourette syndrome, but I hadn't overcome the fact that I was okay talking about it. I still wasn't okay talking about it. So I thought about doing Best Buddies as my platform, and my parents are like, I really think you need to do Tourette syndrome. It's something you personally relate to. It's something that you've struggled with, something that you've gone through. So then I decided, okay, I'll push through it. I'll just speak of it this one time in interview, and then I'll be done. So I go on, I pick a song, I sing, and I have a private interview with the judges. And I don't remember, I have this weird thing that people are like, oh, what'd they ask you in an interview? I'm like, I don't remember. It's like you're on a high for 10 minutes and then you forget. So I still don't know to this day what I was asked. I remember at Miss America I was asked something about Lindsay Lohan, and that's about all I remember. I don't know why. Something about karate too, because we did karate as a family. But so it was really, really a struggle for me to get up on stage and get up and tell people about Tourette syndrome, tell people what I went through. Thankfully, as what I can remember, my first pageant, they probably only asked me 1 or 2 questions about it, and it kind of eased my way into it. So it was like, oh, I'll answer it and move on. But later on, I learned that in interview, you should share your story and make the judges cry, because then they'll like you better. But at this point, I was like, oh yeah, I had Tourette's, and then I, moved on from the question. But and I ended up getting first runner-up in my first pageant ever, which I was disappointed about, but looking back, I'm so competitive! I was disappointed about it, but looking back, it was my first pageant I've ever done. I decided a month before that I was going to compete, so I was like, okay, I'm okay with it. And then, so embarrassing, my onstage question, they asked me something about what I think about high school dropout rates, and my answer came out way wrong, and I was like, oh, I think the high school dropout rate should be raised. They knew what I meant. So therefore I did not win. That probably took me from first to second. But okay, anyways. And then I did not drop out of high school. I'm still in college. And then my second pageant was just a week later, and it was Miss Tempe. So same thing, kind of went through it. The interview was a little bit harder because they asked a little bit more about Tourette's, and I didn't want to talk about it. And so I wasn't really good at talking about it at the time, so they probably didn't really understand anything. And then, so I got first runner-up in that one as well. So that was the last pageant of the season, so I couldn't compete for Miss Arizona that year. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna work really hard, try to win next year. So I competed for Miss City of Maricopa, which was one of the first pageants of the pageant season for the next year. And so I competed for Miss City of Maricopa, got better at interview, got better at learning to live with the fact that I have Tourette's, and learn to share my story and be able to inspire others. So preparing for that pageant, I actually started, I don't think I spoke at schools at this point, but I actually started to speak at the Tourette Syndrome Association and kind of talk to others about it so that I could get used to it, so that I could feel confident about sharing my story. And I think it helped because I won. And then 9 months later, I had a whole 9 months to be Miss City of Maricopa before the Miss Arizona pageant. And then I did speak at schools. I shared my story. I tried to help out as many kids and relate to as many kids as I could. And then I competed for Miss Arizona, and I had won that year. And I can't even begin to tell you that from the time I won Miss City of Maricopa to the time I won Miss Arizona, so much has happened with my relationship with God. It was amazing. So I think he's the reason I was able to share my story. And I have never felt so close to him in my life. I wasn't the slightest bit nervous, and I kid you not the slightest bit nervous during interview, during onstage question, during evening gown, during talent, during swimsuit, nothing at Miss Arizona. I would pray right before I stepped on that stage. And I wouldn't forget about him, so I'd pray right after I stepped off the stage and thanked him for what I had just done. And I think I devoted my time, so preparing for the swimsuit portion, going into Miss Arizona, I've always been decently healthy. I would enjoy pizza more than I do now, but I was always decently healthy. I grew up in a healthy family, so I kind of knew what what proper exercise and nutrition was. So I had 9 months to kind of get my body into the best shape I could before Miss Arizona. So I would do 30-minute morning runs, and that whole 30 minutes I would start to listen to music, and then I think I started doing that, and then probably a week into it, I decided to turn off my music, and that 30 minutes every morning was my time with God. I would pray the entire 30 minutes. It made the running go by faster, thankfully. I feel like he helped me not only get through the workout and be occupied, but he helped me grow, honestly, in him. And I grew in him, and I was able to just feel so much more confident in sharing my story and realizing how God was working in my life from age 10 being diagnosed to now. And I realized at that moment that, well, it's very important for me to share this story, and I shouldn't be embarrassed by it because everyone goes through challenges. I mean, I have friends who've gone through other things that they say they're embarrassed about as well, but there's no reason to be embarrassed by it because everyone goes through something. So those morning runs I looked forward to, gosh, I don't know why, but I looked for, probably because God kept me company. He was running with me. He likes to exercise too. And then we'd go eat bread after. And drink wine. Just kidding. I wasn't 21 at that point, so I didn't drink wine. And I still don't. It doesn't really taste that good. You should have made it a little better. I looked forward to those morning runs, and I was just so thankful that I would ask him, I have control over what I eat. I have control over the exercises I do. But it's kind of scary because you really don't know how your body's going to react. It's science, but you really don't know or understand. So I would just even pray, just the smallest things I would pray for. And it's, God, I'm exercising, I'm doing what I know I should be doing, I'm doing what's healthy. So now it's up to you. I pray that you would transform my body into what I want it to be, where I'll feel good. And he did it. And it's just amazing to know that you're exercising, you're putting in all this work, and you're trusting God to kind of take care of it. And that's how it was with everything. God, I pray that you help me with this interview, help me know what to say, know what to speak, and know how to connect to the audience. And he did. And I would pray every day that the judges and whoever I speak to, whoever I come by at schools, my directors, anybody, that they would just feel God's presence through me. And that's all I wanted. I'm very competitive, and I wanted to win Miss Arizona, but my goal wasn't to win. It was that the judges would see God's presence through me, and that on stage I would shine through him. And I didn't tell a single person that. I just told myself that, and that was God and I's relationship. And immediately after I won, one of the judges came up to me and they said, "You just shine on stage and I can feel God through you." And I was just like, whoa, thank you. That is definitely a God thing. And that is probably the best thing I've ever heard in my life to this day. And that is my goal in life now, is still I want people to feel God's presence through me. Because he knows what I've gone through. He's helped me with what I've gone through. Why not credit it to God? I mean, I obviously could not have done this by myself. And he gave me the most amazing parents to be able to deal with this and to be able to help me through it. So it was the physical love and bond I had from my parents, and then it was that unseen love that I still felt from God. And that leads me to one of my favorite Bible verses, which is 2 Corinthians 4:18. And that's, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, what is unseen is eternal." And that just reminded me of my personal connection with God. And it also relates to, there can be many meanings to this Bible verse, and it relates to life in general. I had not known I would become Miss Arizona at the time. That kind of destination was unseen. But it's the faith. It's the faith that was eternal. I became that title, and now I am that title, Miss Arizona 2013 for eternity. Same thing with my future. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know. I have goals in mind. God can change that. I don't know where I'm going. But it's that unseen faith, that faith in God and that faith in my future and that faith that he will lead me to where I want to go, that keeps me going. And, what is seen is my mom. I'm just kidding. You're not eternal. I'm just kidding. No, but what is seen is all the earthly things that aren't going to matter in eternity. So it's hard to go and speak at places when. So there's this one school that I had to speak at about like inner beauty, and I have this crown on my head, and I have my hair done, I have fake eyelashes on, I have, this beaded gown on and a sash, and I'm like talking about inner beauty when it's clearly like, look at me. But really, this is where this Bible verse comes in, because it truly is the inner beauty that, I don't care how beautiful a person is on the outside, it's truly that inner beauty that makes that person, and that's what's going to last for eternity, and that's what is unseen. Your beauty on the inside is unseen, but it's so you can feel it, and then it's able to become an eternal feeling, and then it becomes seen, because people are prettier if they're nicer. There you go. Everybody be nice. No, so that's basically kind of my whole story of what I've gone through and where I'm at now. And I just encourage everybody to, if you haven't already, just to kind of see where God is at in your life. I still have no idea where I'm going. I'm a country singer, and so one of my goals is to try to pursue country music, possibly move to Nashville in a year or so. And I also love hosting. Maybe eventually that could lead to a television series or red carpet events. I think big, so I'm like, I don't want to host like a pageant or anything. Gosh, those pageants. So it's just the feeling that my future is unseen. I just have faith in it. I have faith that God's going to lead me to where I'm supposed to be, and I know He will. It's just hard in the meantime not knowing, but I know that I just have to have that faith and push through it. So I encourage everyone, if you still are unsure about your relationship with God, or if you have a future and you don't really know where you want to lead, just pray about it. God will lead you to where you need to be, and it'll end up just fine if you have Him in your life. So I'm very thankful for what I've gone through and where He has led me and where He will lead me. Okay. Usually when I go to schools, all the kids are like, "Oh my gosh, sing!" They're so cute. They're like, "Can you sing this one song?" And I'm like, "I don't know that song," because it's like a Disney Channel song and it's so cute. But I'm gonna sing. Okay, so when I won Miss Arizona, I sang. Maybe it was Memphis by Pam Tillis. I don't know if any of you are familiar with it, but I'll just sing the first verse and first chorus and see where it goes. But I haven't warmed up today, so we'll see how it goes. Looking at you through a misty moonlight, Katie did sing like a symphony. Porch swing swaying like a Tennessee lullaby, melody blown through a willow tree. What was I supposed to do? Standing there looking at you, a lonely boy far from home. Maybe it was Memphis, maybe it was summer nights, maybe it was you, maybe it was me, but it sure felt right. Another thing, when I gave up my title, does anybody know Anyway by Martina McBride? It's an amazing song. So when I gave up my Miss Arizona title, I don't know if I can right now.
So sing it and because she, okay guys,
Okay,
it's so beautiful.
Why don't you, Mom, come speak in the mic.
Okay.
She's like, I don't like speaking in front of people. Well, I'm gonna make you.
No, I don't like speaking in front of people. It's one of my biggest fears. It's like needles. But no.
Speaking of needles, I have to get a blood test soon. I'm really scared.
Yeah, it'll be hard.
Pray for me.
No, all I want to say is she sings this song and it connects. It's a God song. But this morning I was telling her you really should sing it, and she's like, Mom, I have not been preparing. It's a big song, and it takes a lot of speech, you know, to lead up to. So, I mean, I know you can do it. Do you remember it all?
Probably.
Okay, so that's what I mean. I just wanted her to try to sing this. I think you'll do a great job. So just do what you think
Okay.
you do about 3
Okay, I'll try. But the reason I love this song and the reason I chose to sing this when I gave up my title is because I feel like it kind of described my whole year. It described what I had tried to tell everybody and speak to everybody about. I wanted people to accomplish their goals and their dreams and overcome their challenges and push through this and trust God in the process. So that's kind of what this song
Oh, and anybody can
tells-
go on, search YouTube and go to Jennifer Smestad Anyway. That just Anyway is the song, and listen to her on stage and with the music
I'm gonna
behind
have to start paying you. She's like my marketing lady.
Jennifer, repeat what she said because some people need
Oh, she
to-
said the song that I actually performed, the one I performed at Miss Arizona, it's on YouTube, so you can just type in Jennifer Smestad Anyway. And then there's 2 versions. There's one that's like 4 minutes long, and that's just the song. And then the other one is about 7 minutes long, and that's the song. And then it's also kind of my farewell video in between it. So it's a slideshow of pictures, and then it's me giving a speech, basically summarizing my whole year. Oh, I wish we could play that here. But how does it go? How does it start? I'm trying to think of how it starts. One sec. Okay, I remember. Okay, here we go. Mom, you're the one who requested it. Sit right here. Be my biggest fan. Over here.
Just do your best.
You can spend your whole life building something from nothing. One storm could come and blow it all away. Build it anyway. You can chase a dream that seems so out of reach, and you know it might not ever come your way. Dream it anyway. God is great, but sometimes life ain't good. And when I pray, it doesn't always turn out like I think it should. But I do it anyway. I do it anyway. This world's gone crazy, and it's hard to believe that tomorrow will be better than today. Believe it anyway. You can love someone with all your heart for all the right reasons, and in a moment they may choose to walk away. But love them anyway. God is great, but sometimes life ain't good. And when I pray, it doesn't always turn out like I think it should. But I do it anyway. Yeah, I do it anyway. Yeah. I sing, I dream, I love anyway. Yeah. You can pour your soul out singing a song you believe in, that tomorrow they'll forget you ever sang. Sing it anyway. Yeah, that's good. I just love the lyrics of that song. And fun fact, actually, I think it came out my 8th grade year when I was here at CrossRoads, and we would listen to it every single day on the way to school. Fun fact.
And it says pray, and there's also a verse in there that talks about praying. And then if your prayers don't come true,
Yeah.
pray anyway. It's a wonderful song.
It's a good song. Love it.
So you ought to be me and have to get up here and talk now. Gotta wipe away the tears. That was so beautiful. You know, I was writing a card out for Jennifer this morning. I'm going to tell you what verse I wrote down. From Psalm 40, verse 3. He put a new song in my mouth. Wow. A song of praise to our God. Many will see and fear and will trust in the Lord. How blessed is the man who has made the Lord his trust and has not turned to the proud nor to those who hope in falsehoods. God is good.
Amen.
And you know, he hasn't done what he's done in Jennifer's life just because she was someone extra special that he decided he knew she is. But he wants to do that in every single life. He wants to touch lives so that we can touch others, so that we can comfort others with the comfort that we've been comforted with. I was reading a devotion a couple days ago, and she was talking about this verse that I had already put down here in Romans 8:28. And we know that in all things God works for good, for those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. And sometimes we really struggle with that verse. We struggle with the verse that says to give thanks in all things. But you know, I was thinking of those two verses side by side, and I thought, how can I give thanks in all things? And then I thought, well, this is my sanctified opinion about it. I think I can give thanks because God's always working in all things for my good. So I can thank him that he will do it. I was reading a devotion and she was saying, she's talking about Isaiah 40. Those who wait on the Lord will renew their strength. And she was saying, it says they will renew their strength. It doesn't say they can hope it might happen. They can maybe, if they're really good and they do this or do that or whatever, it says they will renew their strength. And the thing I like that Jennifer was saying was that every day, that time she was spending, and she kept praying those prayers over and over again. You know, and sometimes we think I prayed that prayer. I've already asked God. But we keep doing it because his promises are true. And what's out there may not be changing, but what's in here does change. And that makes all the difference in the world. So we are just blessed today. I know that we have some visitors here. We thank you for coming and sharing this special time with us. I know Judy, who's been taping this morning, wants to take a picture. If you were in any way associated with the school that was here at CrossRoads, teachers or students, moms of students, she'd like to take a picture of you all. So if you could gather up here later. And we just want to close and thank the Lord for what he's done. And we thank you, Lord. We just want to leave here with hope stirred in our hearts. Just holding on. And if you feel really distant from God, maybe you have never said, you've never taken that step of faith. You know, Jesus is that way to that Father that Jennifer talked about, to that relationship. He made the way for us. He laid down his life. And all it takes is saying, I want that. I believe you did that for me. And that's where I want to be. That's all. And you become that child of his that he's going to watch after, that he's going to stick by. That last verse on the page says, once you were not a people, but now you are the people of God. Once you did not have mercy, but now you have mercy. And when we accept what he's done for us, we have that opportunity to receive all that he has in his kingdom. All, everything. And he's a big God. He is a holy God. And he's made a way for us to be close to him. So I just pray this prayer this morning, that your heart will be drawn to the one who cares the absolute most for you on this earth. And you'll just leave all the rest there at his feet. And he will take care of that. And we thank you, Lord. We thank you for this beautiful young woman. We pray that you help her through every challenge she still has before her, even needles. And we know you can, God. Needles are easy, right, God? We just thank you, Father. Bless her family, and every other family here that's got those challenges where they're standing with a child or a grandchild or a sibling. We thank you, God. And we praise you today, and we give you all the glory, for it truly belongs to you. In Jesus' name, amen. Oh, I always forget this. Why do I always forget? Okay, there are roses on your table. Now, you can't take the vase, but I want you all to take the rose on your table. And if there are not enough, I think some of our young ones should get to take roses home, because they were our special guests today.